In today's studio session, we are looking ahead to Armed Forces Day, which is especially important to more people in the utilities industry than you might originally think. Sharing their insights with us are former Royal Engineer and Cadent Director of the East Midlands Network, Richard Sansom, and former Royal Engineer and Skewber, Darren Hardy. A very warm welcome to you both. First time in the studio, but not first time doing podcasts for both of you, I think.
I've done a few. Well,
yeah, one or two.
I hope we match your expectations.
It'll be great. It'll be fine.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so let's start with why you joined the military in the first place. Let's take it all the way back to the beginning of your journey. Richard, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I kind of got to my A-levels and I thought, you know, this is all just a bit too theoretical for me. So I really wanted to apply myself, you know, and really wanted to kind of do something that kind of gave me kind of a good feeling inside, I suppose, and actually give back to, you know, the country and, you know, give back to like the people that kind of have given so much to me, I suppose, up to that point. And there was a lot going on in the world at the time. It was in the early 2000s, and I thought, you know, I was a sucker for the advert, I suppose, the army advert, be the best. You know, I had some skills to offer, and I saw the advert and I just thought, looks good to me, you know, get a bit of money, learn some life skills, really put myself up against it and test myself and test all the things that, you know, I thought I could do, but it's going to be really hard. And I just kind of went for it because I thought this at this moment in time in my life is the best option. I can get a different education. I can get an education that's not like your conventional academic education. It just wasn't for me at the time. And yeah, just put my head down, applied, which is a massive step for me. I was only 18 and just turned up and got on with it and didn't really think too much of it.
Darren, what about you? Were you a similar age?
Yeah, just a bit younger actually, and a completely sort of different reason of why I grew up in the back end of sort of the Troubles in Northern Ireland, and I pretty much was involved heavily in a lot of that. Now I witnessed a shooting when I was 8 years old, which was a knee capping, which is a punishment which is notorious in Northern Ireland. And a lot of when all my friends started going to high school, etc., I was very much held back through wanting to play rugby and sport, and I didn't want to go down to the park and drink. And a lot of those guys went off and joined the paramilitaries, whereas I'd set early on when I was about probably 10 years old, I wanted to join the army. My dad was in the army and I wanted to sort of follow those footsteps. So as soon as I could apply, I knew what GCSEs I had to get to be in the Royal Engineers. That differs across all the cap badges in the army. So like the infantry don't really need anything to get in generally. So the likes of Jack. But then Royal Engineers are set different from the rest, and I'm sure Richie will agree with that. And
no comment.
and you have to get academic calls to get in, and at that level at GCSE. So I was 16 and 9 months in, and off I shipped across to Lichfield to do my basic training. Where
Dizzying heights of Lichfield.
Yes, where I also think Richie followed through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that where you two met?
No, it was later on, but I think I was just behind Darren, you know, maybe 3 months behind, something like that. So we shared the same block, but just at a different point in time.
Can you remember your first meeting?
It was in the gym, wasn't it? Probably.
I think so. Yeah, it was Germany.
Germany. I'd just come back from Iraq.
Yeah. So
we came back from Iraq. I came back a couple of weeks early before the end of the tour, and I worked with Richie in the gym before going on my PTI course, which is a physical training instructor. And that was it from there. History was made, I suppose. And I think the fact that you're both joining the Royal Engineers means you've probably got some sort of commonality in the fact then we were both physical training instructors is another passion we had of sport together and fitness. And that just sort of evolved into what we are now, and still 20 odd years on, still really, really good mates.
And Darren, you were saying you can still vividly picture the day Richard told you he was leaving.
Yeah, I was gutted. It was like a breakup. I think, and we were known to be together anyway. Richie was, I was, and vice versa. And it was like the Irish and the blonde PTIs. That's what it was. And yeah, I remember walking out of the gym the day, and we walked across into the grass area cobble, and you says, "Oh, I'm hitting the button. I'm signing off." And I was like, "What? You want to leave all this, you know?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm going to do my," because you were a plumber by trade, right?
Yeah.
Going to do my gas safe and going to come up like a plumber. And I was like, no, mate, look at what we've got here. We've been all over the world together and did stuff, and yeah, he went, and it still hurts me a little bit, actually.
Still mourns you. I guess for Darren it felt out of the blue, but for you, had you been thinking about that decision to leave for a while?
Yeah, so I joined the army to get an adventure, to serve, to kind of get some experience, to grow up and see different things. And certainly in the 5 years that I was in the army, I definitely experienced that. And I was night and day from kind of, I suppose, the boy that joined the army to, 22, turning like 23-year-old. So I never planned on staying in the army for a long, long period of time. My dad did give me some advice around, get a trade, join the engineers, which was probably one of the best bits of advice that he could have given me, because what I found was, a passion for kind of engineering, fixing problems, getting involved with, technical projects. So for me, the military was terrific, because it gave me that. I wouldn't have gone on this pathway that I'm on now without the military, no doubt. There's no way I would have had the skills, kind of the leadership skills and the mindset and the ability to kind of work through kind of, difficult situations, and, also a passion for kind of the engineering side of the business and the value that brings. And in the military, I just couldn't do the engineering as often as I would have liked. So I thought, look, this is what I'm passionate about. People thought I was insane because I was in the army. After you stay in for 4 or 5 years, things start to happen in the military, and you start to get promoted and you get different opportunities. It just wasn't for me. I really did want to pursue the engineering full time outside of the military. I had to kind of make a big decision to leave the army, and leaving the army is almost more difficult than joining the army in many ways, because you love everything about it, really. Most people that are in the military love it. They love the people, they love like the camaraderie, they love the kind of the value that kind of they bring whilst they're in the military. And to leave is a bit of an unknown as to whether you're going to get that back, whether you're going to retain that, whether it's the right decision. So to leave was like a massive, massive decision for me, but I just knew that it was the right thing for me to pursue, like my passion, my dreams, to get out and be a full-time gas engineer. And I had to not only make the decision, but kind of, take many steps back. After building up for 5 years in seniority and experience in the military, like leaving the military is not necessarily straightforward, because, not always are your skills recognised by employers, and, they're looking for like technical civilian qualifications, and I didn't have all those. So, I had to leave and make a big decision to take a couple of steps back in my career, really, to then build another foundation, technical foundation in civilian life, to then implement the skills that I have got, which I fundamentally know that I've learned from the military, which is my mindset and my ability to communicate with people and build good plans and get behind common goals. I think the military's given me a lot of that, and that's allowed me now to shine, I think, within what I'm doing, and just give me a rounded, not only kind of a technical understanding, but I know good amount about myself and others, and really kind of believe in doing things together as a team. And the military has absolutely given me that, and I wouldn't have got that experience without the army. There's no way that it might have taken a long time. I might have found a way, but it was quite clear when I left the military that that's the right way to do things, and that's how I need to conduct myself going forward.
And probably just add on that as well, it takes a year to leave the army. Once you hit the button, they call it 7 clicks to heaven, because it takes seven going through the laptop. And during that year, and they try and make you stay. They want to offer you courses and that. So mine was different, but for Richie to do that, it was you've got to have drive and determination to carry on. I want to do this. I mean, they offer postings back home, they offer you courses to try and make you stay in the military, but to have that drive and determination, especially at such a young age, like 22, it is quite commendable to do that.
Such a difficult transition period in your lives, which a lot of people won't be able to relate to, because as you mentioned, Darren, you were doing everything together, you had that sense of camaraderie, and then suddenly you're sort of out on your own in a way, trying to find that purpose again. Richard, it sounds like you were very driven and had that clear plan in your head, but what supports were available to both of you once you left the military and were transitioning into civilian life?
I think for me personally, you know, I joined another large organisation, National Grid at the time, and they were terrific when it comes to give me like a home, I suppose, because, you know, you leave the military, which is a huge organisation, loads of support, loads of opportunity to get involved in things, and, you know, loads of people to reach out to. You know, National Grid's very similar in many ways actually, and there was plenty of services and plenty of colleagues, and, you know, the camaraderie and the teamwork was kind of there for day one. So for me, you know, it was reasonably seamless, but I had to adjust in regards to my approach and the way that I thought about work and the way that I thought about things, because, you know, the military is an extreme environment. You can't shy away from that, and you go into civilian life and it's extreme, but in different ways. It's not as extreme, and, you know, the risks aren't the same, and so, you know, it's kind of a period of time to recalibrate. But, you know, National Grids gave me real opportunity to you know, learn. So, you know, I was an apprentice when I left the army. I had a real opportunity to learn, and not only learn, you know, the technical aspects, but also see the things that are going on every day out in our streets. You know, the value that engineers are bringing in utilities. You know, seeing the smile on kind of people's faces when the gas goes back on, or, you know, you fix a problem. You know, and that's what drives me today. That seeing that, you know, firsthand just gave me that deep kind of resonance in my body, so that I just absolutely knew it was the right decision, because, again, I found that there's a purpose to this. You know, there's utilities, there's a reason why we're here. There's so much value that we bring to the economy. There's so much greatness that we kind of deliver for our customers, and that's what kind of drove me on to learn more and more. And, you know, but those experiences and that kind of opportunity I had at National Grid at the time just gave me that kind of good understanding of exactly why we do the things we do in the utilities, and what can go wrong if we don't get it right, and how we can't allow that to ever happen, because, you know, we're trusted by our customers to do a good job, and we just got to do a good job. Simple as that.
Yeah, and I think mine was slightly different. So I was medically discharged, so I had no option. I was coming out whether I liked it or not, and that was through both physical and mental injuries from Iraq, and then later on in my career. So I had to come out, and just I was thinking about something Richie was chatting there. You know, we served together for a few years together, and then we sort of you part, don't you? And that's the thing with the military. I've got friends in all four corners of the world, you know, and but you would still consider a sort of a best friends. And we, similar to coming into the utility sector, my last 6 months I worked in KPMG. So I went on to be an officer in the army, and spent 15 years, and I just followed what every officer did and went and worked in the city, you know, and it was totally not me, you know, suited and booted every day, and having to go in at that sort of management level, from managing soldiers to managing civilians, really I struggled to do that initially. And that's when I reached back out to Richie, you know, and I worked for Skanska on the TRIO contract, on the mains replacement. And that's when we sort of rekindled, like, in 2017, and then just we've been very close since. It's the reason why I'm here in Skewb today through Richie and that. And it's that, you know, what you get in the military life of a friend for life, you know, they call it a family. I could probably, if Richie, even though he lives quite a far distance from me now, if he needed me, I would drop and be there, and probably vice versa, you know, and it's good to have that support. So the utility sector for me was working with the lads on site as a project manager. You know, you have that banter. A lot of people miss the banter and that of the military and how you speak to each other, etc. And that brought a lot of that back. Certainly different from the city life in KPMG. So yeah.
Why do you think so many people do make that? I was amazed once I moved into the utility sector at how many people who had served had made that transition from military to utilities. You don't naturally think of the two, but why do you think so many people have made that transition?
I think because there's transferable skills for sure. I think the utility sector, as mentioned, really gives value back, I think, to the communities, and you get a sense of just what utilities bring to people. You know, without utilities there isn't civilization, and without militaries there's not civilization. So it's kind of got that not obvious link, like, and I've discovered that over time really, because I've thought about this quite a bit. But I also think Utilities, it's not easy, it's not straightforward, there's a lot of complexities, you're working under pressure, you work in 24/7 often, not all the time, but sometimes there's incidents, there's loads going on, and the army is very similar, I would say. So I think once people rekindle, they manage to find their way into utilities, they think, oh, some of this is quite familiar, and it's kind of like a safe place, I think, for military people, because they think some of this is very familiar, some of it's not. Some of it is very, very familiar to how the army sets itself up and the things you've got to deal with in the military.
Yeah, and also as well, the more and more people that come into the utility and construction sector, in essence, is the more people you're going to bring in from the military. It's I've got friends that are leaving now. We had Alice, who worked here. I brought in, she was leaving the military. It's like, come and work in this. It's quite similar to the military, and you trust that person in there. I trusted this was a good decision for me, having not known anything about Skewb, that Richie put me in contact with Shashi, and I just knew that was going to work, and because I trust Richie, and similar with other people coming in. So the more people that are in it, we're just going to keep getting more and more probably ex-military coming through the ranks, in essence.
And Richard, you're now network director, so what challenges have come up in your role today that might have surprised you, or you found you've got transferable skills that have better equipped you for your role today?
I think, leading a network or leading any team, people kind of, from my perspective, are at the core of all of that. And I think, the military really does educate you when it comes to yourself and others, and working independently, but also working as a team and actually being part of something that's kind of selfless, and being part of something that is team orientated. It's a team game, the military. It's not kind of about individuals, it's a team game. And that's what I try to bring to my role, really. And that's what I firmly believe is kind of the root of all of our success. It's around trying to build something where people understand where we're going, the direction, the challenges we're going to face along the way. Similar to military, know where we're going, where the challenge is going to be, but ultimately how we treat each other, how we communicate with each other, how we kind of work in a low ego kind of environment just to do the best job possible. And the root of everything is all around doing a good job, but a good job for good reason. So everything I try to do is around that, and that's what kind of keeps me calm, because we know where we're going, we know it's going to be difficult, we know it's going to be challenging along the way, we know that we've got great people around us. My job is to ensure that all of that is kind of glued together, and we maintain that and just create that environment where people can thrive.
Cadent has quite a strong military community as well, if I'm not mistaken. What kind of group or employee resource groups are there for people who maybe used to work in the military and are now at Cadent?
Yeah, so we've got the Cadent military community, which I'm actively involved in, and similar to military people coming in and out of kind of utility sector, often people that join Cadent from the military are kind of they like what they see, and over time, because there's been a lot of people that serve the nation, and bit by bit these people trickle out into society, and Cadent we've seized that.
Oh, we've been talking for too long. That's our cue. No, I don't know what's happened there.
Yeah,
there you go.
We've seized that opportunity really to kind of bring those people together again. So it's great being in Cadent. It's great that you've got that sense of community, but we've got some focus work through the Cadent military community to really bring people back together. So you've got good conversations going. You can kind of talk the same language because you've got similar experiences. But we also have challenges. Raise money for charity, and really just celebrate the kind of key points like the Armed Forces Day and Remembrance and all these kind of things. Just do it in a way that's gives people that sense of pride, that purpose, but also it's kind of familiarity, and people that haven't been in the military are also part of the community as well, because they've got that sense of national pride and they want to be part of celebrating the nation and all the great stuff that kind of the nation brings.
And have you found Skewb to be as you expected, or has it matched your hopes?
Yeah,
we are recording.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. Pick my words. So. No, I mean, I've obviously come from. So I left in 2017 and went to work in Skanska. Then, so I've always worked in sort of the operational side. Then I went into bid management within Skanska, and then my previous role to this was like head of projects around Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and at CBRE before coming in. So I've always been on that side of things. So now I've come to a consultant side, so actually offering that, actually, when people used to say, when consultants come into the office, it's like, what does this mean and all, and then just trying to really gauge that room. So it's been an eye opener for me, and I think going back to taking things from the military and what serves me well in this job is two things really. Is the communication. You get taught in the military, communication is key. And you probably, I firmly believe, if you look at every single failure in business or home life, it probably comes down to communication error somewhere along the lines, where you're not heard, or you've not said it in the right way, or you've communicated it wrong via email, you can't put emotion in it, etc. So and that's what the military teaches you well, because communication goes wrong in the military, in a sort of a war zone, there's death. You can't get around with that. Similarly, in the gas industry, if you communicate wrong, people can get killed. And that's whether that be one of the own workers or the person on the receiving end, the customer. So there's that, but also just doing the basics well. I think, and sort of originally touched on it, doing good things well for the right reason. And if you can do the basics well, I think that's what sets people apart from the other. If you can do the basics almost better, that's how you shine in essence. And that for me are my two biggest sort of takeaways in the military. I thought, do the basics well. I still use military planning into what we do today, and it's a thing called the 7 questions. And you can plan how you move like one vehicle and 3 people from A to B, or you use the same set of questions to move a whole battle group of 2,000 people from the UK to Iraq. So it's the same process, and I've turned it into like a consultancy based form, and I use that today while still planning for whatever the task is ahead.
What do you think companies can do to better support? Sounds like you've both got great support networks around you, but what can companies do to better support someone coming in from the military?
I think providing a great environment, clearly that's going to help from day one. I think utilities generally do that because, as mentioned, people can kind of identify with what's going on in the day-to-day. But, I do think additional support, people in the military, people in general, like especially in really busy jobs, there's a lot going on in the world, there's a lot going on in people's lives. You never really know. So I think companies are now more alive to that in terms of professional development and development of others, but also kind of support. And I think the more that business can do to kind of break down stigmas when it comes to support and what support is on offer, and getting people to take the first step, because we're not experts in everything. If we're physically not well, you go and see a doctor. There's other things that go wrong in your own life. Debt advice or relationships and things not going right. So go and speak to professionals. And I think the more that we can do in business to break down stigmas, communicate in as many different ways as possible, so that people feel like it's good to kind of take that first step, the more we can do that, the more chance we've got to kind of keep people happy and motivated and moving in the right direction with their own lives. I think that's my goal. We've got roadshows on at the minute, and that's the focus of it. Really is about well-being and how we kind of just move the conversation on from, we've got these really great tools, but we want people to use them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But also putting a bit of ownership on the individual, so the person coming out of the military, to actively let the company, the business know what if they've been discharged. So myself, I'll use that as an example. I'm discharged with PTSD and a replaced shoulder. I have PTSD. I went through a bad stage probably December, January, February, but because Shashi was aware of it and Nick knows, so everyone was aware of it and knew my situation, they were able to fully support that in it. So if I never communicated that at the start, they'd be like, well, what's going on here? So it's keeping everyone in the loop, who there needs to be and who wants to be, and it enables that sort of the success and someone to look after you, and leaning on. For myself, I learnt a lot on Richie during that time I was off, because I knew that Richie could speak to Shashi as well, and I can communicate to him in a military way, and he can sort of translate it into a business way back to Shashi. So it's using your network and the people around you to make sure that if you don't tell someone what's wrong, how can they fix it? So it's that as well.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Armed Forces Day is coming up. It's Saturday, 29th of June. How will you be marking the day, and what do you carry with you at each anniversary?
So we've got our kind of Cadent celebration this Thursday. So we've got, some serving reservists. We've got people that are ex-military kind of supporting that event. We've got, armoured vehicles. We've got some of our other community groups that really pulling together to get the whole event set up and as many people there as possible. And really, for us, it's just, it's a day of respect, really, on Thursday, around the sacrifices that people have made and are making actively, and, looking back, but also looking forward, around the things that we've done, but also the things we need to do, around supporting soldiers. What do we need to do within business to make sure that, for reservists, for people leaving the military, what are the policies that we've got, all that kind of thing, as well as the communities and the environment that we kind of have within the organisation, to make sure that people that come out of the military or are serving in the military feel like they are in a safe place, but also they've got everything they need to be successful, both in their Cadent career and if they're on active duty as a reservist, that they feel like they've got a job to come back to, and they feel like the business really do value them as serving soldiers.
You're not pulling a car or something,
No, no, not. I'm actually on the recovery from an operation from
pulling the car.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So generally, myself, I would generally do a charity event for normally Help for Heroes. It is a charity that I probably want to say saved me, at my worst point coming out. So I tend to like to give back to that and try and help others. But having been on the recovery only 8 weeks ago from surgery from the services, I'm not doing anything this year. But for me, it's a bit like another Remembrance Day. I like to reflect on stuff that happened, more so the bad stuff that happened and the ones who didn't make it. And I tend to like to use it more that when I'm not doing more in a charity event like this week, I'll be pretty much more, I like to keep it sort of in myself, and I'll probably go to the coast and chill out and just sort of remember that way and pay the respects how I would on Remembrance and every other day of the year. I think unfortunately I've lost more friends now through suicide and PTSD than we did while serving, and those anniversary dates are all the time, so I tend to reflect and remember that way and sort of give that respect back.
Thank you both for your time. Thank you for sharing your experiences. Thank you for your service. And a reminder, Armed Forces Day takes place on Saturday the 29th of June, with events happening across the country. You can head to armedforcesday.org.uk to find an event near you.